Yeah, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings in the YouTube Atheist Community and Debate Room Fun and such. So last night, yeah, just was whatever it was. Yeah, no real stuff. But, totally adequate as some sort of whatever social interaction. Um, but, yeah, not not what I'm after exactly. So anyway, I guess we'll just move on to what else is going on. All right, so I think the Luddite thing is known by everybody. They closed his account, but who knows exactly why? Blah 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 blah. Been some other. What's the other one? Oh, Wayward Horizon guy closed his account. I guess he just, start over in some other form. And, what else? Whatever. Yeah, that's enough of that. The videos are sort of, I'm doing this holiday thing again, and, but it gets into so much minutia that, it's like, I don't know. If we're going to dissect everything to pieces, you're going to have a hard time. It sort of relates to this Carla Della, whatever the fuck it is, name. One of these subjectivists. And it got me thinking about, there's clearly a distinction between, like, we're going to have a debate about potato chips or corn chips. Now, that's a subjective preference, basically. You don't usually apply logic to making your choice. There's, it's just a matter of taste kind of thing. And so that's what you would call a subjective truth. Which one's better? Like a color, favorite color or something. But the truth is you could do analysis and you could come up with some kind of theory based on, what crop, whether corn or wheat is, or potatoes, sorry, is more productive, and you could go through health benefits, or, you can do all kinds of other analysis and come up with some objective facts about which one produces better effects in terms of human function or something, and then make a different qualified statement. But that's minutia, right? I mean, you have to get into, tiny details to extract those objective truths. Where in something like, if you're going to choose between suffering cat and not suffering cat, happy cat and suffering cat, that choice is completely different. You don't have, the subjective component is tiny and the objective component is huge. I mean, every fact indicates that suffering is a negative condition. The words negative, bad, horrible, awful, every word that we have in our vocabulary to indicate a deficit, a loss, a non-profitable circumstance would have something to do with that suffering component, and vice versa. But that's the catch in getting to the holiday thing, is the vice versa part in terms of the nature of the happy cat. Is the happy cat, I made videos years ago about this idea that, a primary theme that I was pushing was this idea that you use up the value of your comfort by experiencing your comfort. Your comfort is a lack of discomfort. Your pleasure is a lack of impediment, impairment, and encumbrance, and badness. And so you're using up the good value by not having the bad, in a sense. And so it doesn't have any ability to compensate for some other bad, because essentially you've sucked up all the gravity of your good, by avoiding or filling the space of the negative through your goodness feeling. Didn't say that exactly the way I wanted to, but the point is that it doesn't have exchange value. You're living in the house. It's not a rental property. You live in the house of your comfort, and it's not something you can exchange on the market to buy somebody out of their homelessness. It doesn't compensate, in other words. And that's sort of where we get to this whole asymmetry argument, which is getting, minutiaed because of language. But the language is difficult just because of the nature of what we're doing in experiencing. Clearly, the definable state, the easily defined state, is the negative state. The positive state is derived primarily, in most cases, if you are not blighted by harm, you're going to be in something called a good state. By default, it's sort of the nature of not being in a negative state, is that you are automatically in a good state. But again, it's not a good state of true profit, so it has no compensation value. So the argument's really getting down to, I keep making this point over and over again, but we can sort of see the nature of it in imagining in the real world kind of circumstances. So, if you imagine that Mars was infested with organisms that were suffering all the time, a terrible, many times worse than any Earth circumstance, where organisms were in, hideous monstrosities, that went through just constant and extreme mental anguish. Your empathy, your recognition that there's a problem would be high. You'd be almost, maybe even, completely distracted by it. If the animals, the organisms look like 7-year-old girls or something, they were all like in a getting raped condition in terms of their anguish, the images from Mars would disturb you. You'd be feeling a necessity to do something to fix it. Now, the other extreme is, for millennia, the happy Martians haven't existed. The, dancing, prancing, rainbow, looking at, happy, puppy, kitten, Martians haven't existed, and nobody's lamented or, sorrowfully written or plead about the horrible tragedy that it is that there aren't a bunch of happy little 7-year-old looking like creatures on Mars chasing balloons. We have absolutely no conscious, capacity to sense any harm happening, because that doesn't exist, because that hasn't been generated or created. Its non-existence is meaningless as a harm or a negative or a bad or a horror or any kind of negatively connotated word, because that's the nature of this circumstance, is that it's about harmability. You have to have harmability before you can be harmed, and if they don't exist to be harmed, then we can't sense any harm. We can't sense the deprivation when they don't have the capacity to be deprivated. And that's sort of what the asymmetry argument explores. And I think if you look at it, without applying microscopes to the verbiage, that's what it reveals. The conundrum, the strangeness of the fact that the nature of bad requires there to be the existence of something that can be batted upon. And that's the fair exchange. And it's only when we extend that need, something needs to live, and we only feel that or sense that when we've identified something as a thing. So it's almost like uniqueness. Uniqueness only has value as a character trait when it's rare. When uniqueness is abundant, who cares? Like snowflakes. They're all unique, but who cares? They're all just snow, and who wants it? Uniqueness means nothing. But if you could, say men only had, 100 sperm that they deposited throughout their lifetime, they might be kind of personal about each one. They might anthropomorphize and give each one more of a mission, and they might be more rooting for them, and they might be more cognizant of, human being could have been number 5. Yeah, I squirted him out when I was 15, and he's lost forever. He'll never be. And so they can cognize it into something that means something because they've given it an identity. And so back to the Martian example, it's when we create something that we lament its loss. So if I created 2 duplicate planets, one with happy kittens on it, all the kittens are happy, millions of little happy kittens playing with balls of yarn and stuff, and another planet with miserable kittens, just horribly wet and mite infested and drippy eyes and coughing up crap all over the place and just horribly miserable. And I gave you this easy solution. We just eliminate both planets and we don't have any more suffering kittens. Well, now the problem's going to be is you're going to see investment in the happy kittens, and the idea of taking happy kittens away is somehow going to be worse than the fact that they didn't exist at some point and no one was missing them. So the fact that you've made them has now perverted our judgment, our perception, and now we're invested in their extension, their perpetuation. And so now somehow the equation is more difficult than if I just gave you miserable kitten planet and said, well, we can press a button to stop that. We'd press the button. But if it comes at the cost of happy kitten planet, well, then that's going to seem like something being taken away. Like we're denying the happy kittens' happy kittenness, because we're not perpetuating their existence. And I'd argue that that's all psychology, not reason or logic or any of that stuff. And that it should be understood as something to be created, not something to be perpetuated. And so everything should be viewed from the circumstance of would you create it, not whether you would perpetuate it. Because there would be it would be a lot easier to see the value weight of preventing the negative if you aren't invested in needing the positive. So ultimately we're just back to this word need, and that's what this is really all about, is that it is the problem of the unneeded need. And once you destroy the need, there's no need to regenerate it. There's no need to create need. There's nothing external that requires the regeneration of it. And that we completely function on the idea that we need comfort. And it's only something that exists because we exist. The need does not exist beyond our existence. And it's not something external to our existence that compels our existence. We compel it by our need, by possessing the need. And that's the Benatar asymmetry is revealing, is that in that circumstance, you can't be deprivated by being denied an unneeded need. And so anyway, it needs more. It's just, there's a point where you just say you're either going to get it or you don't get it. With this difference between objective and subjective, I mean, there should be some recognition that, choosing between cornflakes and potato chips is a lot different than choosing between, suffering cat and happy cat. Very different. Anyway, doing it a little next time, and such, so forth and whatnot. Little trees, there should be more of these. Deers have been nipping them. Hoping they'd be a little further along. Yeah. Gonna take years, I guess. Anyway. Wow, they're really... Shit, they ate all the branches off of it. They're not gonna go anywhere. I'm gonna have to wrap them with something, I guess. Anyway, woodpecker, you got a hole up there, one over there, annoying and such. So, until next time. Hey, this grass seed came up. Excellent. I thought it was going to get too cold for it, but it didn't. So, win again. I think that's all, folks. Yeah, long video. It was all subject. Well, that's okay. I mean, you can't really do a what the fuck when nothing's happening anymore. Yeah, really is a boring environment. And such. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I am. So anyway, let's see what else is news here. I did see Barklord made a video, just kind of... I mean, they're always interesting videos. He's living in sort of interesting circumstances, and hopefully he won't get ruined. Living with the wretched refuse and such. But anyway, but just this idea of coincidences, and it's sort of an irritant, right? I mean, for atheists, for people who take atheism a little more. Who find atheism a little more interesting subject than just saying, I don't believe in fairy tale gods, and that's the extent of my philosophy. I don't believe. yeah. Like there is a consequence to atheism in the sense that you're left with a story of the universe that doesn't contain this necessary element of purpose and fairness and deserve and all these really important kind of concepts to something called intelligence. And that is kind of a I even brought this up in the conversation somewhere last night, but I think this is an important thing, is the idea that how strange it is that what biology has done by creating the necessity of creating this processing device, this reflexive organizing, filtering, mechanical controller, is that it had to create the idea of good behavior and bad behavior, and that in creating the idea of it, it created the actual thing. It created the actual harmable sentient. So in a universe that had no value, in a universe of just bits of matter shooting about, a bit of the a piece of the eddy in the stream got organized enough and fell upon the idea of value, and then fell upon creation of value, creation of the real thing, and in having a need to synthesize the idea of right road, wrong road, and in trying to synthesize a way of identifying the difference between the two, it created the real deal. It created right and wrong. It created good and bad, ironically. Strangely, or whatever. So anyway, there's this implication to being an atheist. And in our perspective, we're just still psychology, though. And there's such a desire in people to tend to follow trails that might lead to some kind of purpose or connection, meaning. And so people see coincidences, it's hard to experience them and not figure it had to be, or it was meant to be, or it was some, to extend upon them some sort of magic, because why did it happen? So you could argue that, you could roll dice in a casino, and I suppose it happens every now and then. Somebody rolls the dice and they land on top of each other. Must happen sometimes. And I'm sure there's, when that happens to somebody, they're going to ask, why me? Why did I roll the magic dice? Or even the, pulling the arm on the one-arm bandit and they win the $1 million whatever. They're going to somehow think, they earned it or deserved it, or this is somehow was meant to be. Something like that. These probably aren't great examples. They're not even really coincidences. But it's when some things are compounded, when rare events happen, you're just always aware of them. But they're inevitable. And, just it's just the way it is. I mean, it's going to happen, and there's going to be circumstances that are just plainly bizarre in terms of their, that only happens 1 in a million times, and you just happen to be in the right place at the right time for you to be it happened to you, getting run over twice in the street or something. It wasn't a sign from God, it was just bad luck. Anyway, so there was that video. Like I said, it's just sort of, it's not troubling, but it's just sort of, it creates this weakness in the atheist position when atheists seem so vulnerable to, going back to the delusion nipple, delusions based on kind of fundamentally illogical denials of practical fact, that shit is going to happen to you, and some of the shit is going to be just plain fucked up and weird. That's just within the realm of anticipatable over enough permutations. These are inevitabilities. They're not events to be given special powers. They're routine events in the big, long, wide perspective. And atheists should know that. They shouldn't fall for coincidence. Yeah. Anyway. Who else? Professor Anton made a video, but just, bibble babble boo. I responded to it, but there's, nothing useful. Who else? What else? What was some other thing out there? Modern Mystic just posted a economics video from some guy, some whatever, Lord Husafoots, the financial something or other from wherever, talking about debt. So that might be interesting. some of the old themes come up about the nature of money creation and all that kind of crap. So I think I will make some sort of response on the financial channel. Yeah. What else? Do have draft science videos. Nobody likes those much, but the last one was a little bit. I probably have some of the some. I mean, the idea that matter's always moving and jiggling and vibrating at many different frequencies is probably responsible for a lot of things, but it probably isn't the thing that makes light travel slower through a substance. It's probably the density of the atoms, and the slowness is the complication of being absorbed and re-emitted by those atoms. So the interesting thing I got to come up with is the fact that when an electron absorbs a photon, that when it re-emits it on its original path. That's sort of an interesting phenomenon that needs some explaining, I think. I mean, it must do that, theoretically. Our transparencies wouldn't be possible, at least transparencies that do slow light down. Those things like glass. And I think so there must be a mechanism built into the system that requires a proportional response by electrons. They don't just spontaneously emit photons. They do it quite mechanically and quite proportionally to the photons they absorb. But anyway, that's a whole nother whatever. Yeah, don't need to go there. So anyway, but yeah, lots of crazy people on the internet. I don't mean crazy in a bad way, I just mean lots of people with issues. You know, but I guess all people have issues, and you see them more on the internet because people share more of themselves on the internet, I suppose. I mean, that might be part of it. But I guess there's also just the fact that, people who are functional, who don't have issues, are likely very distracted in their real world lives and don't have enough time or resource to, expend on what is often not very fruitful or productive interaction on the internet. It's a very difficult medium through which to communicate, and it shouldn't be. I mean, that's just the way the evil controllers have made it, and they wish to make it even more constructive, destructive to some sort of reasoned or rational interaction, and more of a controlled by them interaction. I'm referencing the fact that YouTube is basically annihilated, their search function. Anyway, I think that's enough. Yeah. So, till the next time, another week accomplished. Yeah. I guess I'll keep doing it as long as I can keep doing it. Anyway. I did sort of, it's kind of sad that there was no English press coverage of derived energy's death. And it's just kind of surprising that somebody can die in an Indonesian rehabilitation center and there's no English press coverage of it. That's kind of creepy. you know, it's just kind of surprising that there's no press interest in such a circumstance. Anyway, yeah. So until next time, and such, so forth and whatnot.